Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a story that begins before the sun is even thinking about clocking in for the day. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a sleepy village, where the last glow of twilight fades and the first blush of dawn waits on the horizon, still a little shy. You probably won't survive this, well, not in the traditional sense of staying wide awake with your phone brightness cranked up. The odds are you'll be asleep before the maiden in our tale even laces up her traveling boots. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment with your location and what time it is right now. I love seeing where everyone is tuning in from, whether it's midnight in Madrid or tea time in Tokyo. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin as a quiet figure in the village square, lantern in hand, still unlit. The cobblestones are cool under your steps, the kind of cool that makes you wish you'd worn thicker socks, but still comforting in its familiarity. Villagers shuffle about, bundled in shawls, offering nods and brief smiles, as though they all know you're about to embark on something unusual. The blacksmith gives you a wave with soot-stained fingers, and even the town dog, the one with only 3 legs but twice the enthusiasm, trots beside you for a while before turning back. The lantern you carry is no ordinary thing. Its frame is wrought in spirals of silver with a glass that seems to shimmer faintly, though no flame burns inside. It was given to you by a woman everyone just calls the Keeper of Keys, because she carries so many that half the town wonders what doors they even belong to. She pressed the lantern into your hands at dawn's edge, telling you in a voice both raspy and steady that this would light only when you needed it most. Of course, she didn't specify when most would be, because that's how mystical mentors roll. As you stand at the outskirts, you realize the horizon is painted in dusky purples and hesitant gold. There's a hush, the kind of pause the world takes before deciding whether to exhale. Your heart beats slower, like it's syncing with something bigger than you, something ancient that's been humming since the first dawn touched Earth. And here's the funny thing. Throughout history, dawn has been more than just a time of day. It's been practically a celebrity. In Greek myth, Eos was the goddess of dawn, painted with rosy fingers and golden robes, bringing light every morning. The Romans adored her too, calling her Aurora. One quirky little tidbit: in some old texts, Eos was known for falling in love with mortal men, which might explain why mornings sometimes feel like an awkward crush, too intense, too bright, showing up uninvited. Scholars still argue if these tales were pure allegory for the daily rebirth of light, or if people genuinely thought of dawn as a moody immortal with questionable dating choices. Back in the village, you take your first step forward. The lantern rattles lightly against your palm, not with noise, but with a pulse, as if it's alive. You can't help but mutter, "Great, a heartbeat lamp, just what I needed." A passing baker overhears, chuckles, and offers you half a roll from yesterday's batch. Chewy, but bread is bread. The smell is faintly sweet, a reminder that even quests fueled by prophecy still need carbs. You follow the dirt path leading away from the square, where hedges stand tall and dew still clings to their leaves. Your boots crunch softly, a rhythm you find oddly soothing. Behind you, the village sounds fade, the rooster giving one last dramatic solo, the gossiping neighbors leaning over fences, even the forge hammer echoing in the background. Ahead, it's just the quiet, the air, and the promise that somewhere a prince sleeps in dawn's embrace, waiting. Your lantern flickers faintly, once, then goes dark again. Typical magical equipment, unreliable until the drama peaks. Still, you grip it tighter, stepping toward the unknown. The path leading away from the village bends into the kind of forest that doesn't exactly scream haunted, but definitely whispers, "We've seen things." You step beneath the first arching branches, and the hush of the trees is immediate. Their leaves stir, though no wind touches your face. It's the sort of sound that reminds you of an old library where every page turn feels louder than it should. The ground is a patchwork of moss and roots, like nature's attempt at carpeting, soft in some places, ridiculously lumpy in others. You can't help but mutter, "5-star trail, minus the tripping hazards." Somewhere overhead, a crow gives a throaty caw, but even that seems muffled by the canopy, as if the forest is keeping all noises to itself, like juicy gossip it refuses to share. Then comes the murmur. At first it's faint, like the static hum when you leave earbuds in your pocket too long, but as you walk deeper, it grows clearer, and you realize the trees aren't just rustling, they're whispering. Whole sentences if you really strain your ears. Some are soft, like lullabies sung through bark. Others are sharp, like warnings hissed between leaves. "Turn back," one tree seems to sigh. "Keep going," another insists, like an overzealous coach, and a third murmurs something suspiciously like, "Did you remember to bring snacks?" Folklorists would tell you this is classic enchanted forest behavior. European tales are littered with groves that whisper secrets, often serving as both guide and trickster. In fact, there's a debate over whether these murmuring woods were simply metaphors for the unsettling sound of wind through branches, or whether medieval folks genuinely believed oaks had chatty personalities. My favorite quirky detail. In parts of Ireland, certain hawthorn trees were thought to house fairies, and people would rather reroute entire roads than cut one down. Civil engineers versus fairies? Fairies usually won. You pause to listen more closely, tilting your head like someone trying to eavesdrop without looking obvious. The voices shift depending on where you stand, like a surround sound system powered by bark. It's almost as if the trees are squabbling over how to help you, kind of like your relatives at Thanksgiving, but with more moss and less pumpkin pie. Your lantern, still dim, quivers in your hand. A faint glow trembles inside, reflecting faintly on the bark, like a firefly deciding whether or not to commit to the whole glowing lifestyle. The path narrows, funneling you deeper into the forest. You step over a root the size of a loaf of bread and feel the air thicken, not unpleasantly, more like slipping into a warm bath. The whispers grow softer, blending into a background hum, so steady it almost feels like a lullaby guiding your steps. But then you catch one voice louder than the rest, sliding out of the chorus like a soloist. The bridge of forgetting," it sighs. The words echo through your chest, tingling in a way that makes your pulse stumble. You stop, squinting at the branches overhead and mutter, "Great, now I'm taking directions from shrubbery. Next thing you know, the bushes will ask for rent." No response from the bushes, though one sapling shivers like it's holding in laughter. Folklorists would tell you this is classic enchanted forest behavior. European tales are littered with groves that whisper secrets, often serving as both guide and trickster. In fact, there's a debate over whether these murmuring woods were simply metaphors for the unsettling sound of wind through branches, or whether medieval folks genuinely believed oaks had chatty personalities. My favorite quirky detail. In parts of Ireland, certain hawthorn trees were thought to house fairies, and people would rather reroute entire roads than cut one down. Civil engineers versus fairies? Fairies usually won. You pause to listen more closely, tilting your head like someone trying to eavesdrop without looking obvious. The voices shift depending on where you stand, like a surround sound system powered by bark. It's almost as if the trees are squabbling over how to help you, kind of like your relatives at Thanksgiving, but with more moss and less pumpkin pie. Your lantern, still dim, quivers in your hand. A faint glow trembles inside, reflecting faintly on the bark, like a firefly deciding whether or not to commit to the whole glowing lifestyle. The path dips downward, leading toward a dim glow ahead. Your lantern flickers stronger now, as if recognizing the destination before you do. The whispers fade, as though the trees know they've done their job and can finally stop playing GPS. Ahead, you catch sight of mist curling low across the ground. It's thick and silver,
spreading like spilled milk along the trail. And somewhere inside it, a shape waits, arched, graceful, stretching across what looks like an invisible stream. The bridge. You tighten your grip on the lantern, exhale slowly, and step forward.
The mist clings to your boots like it's auditioning for the role of mysterious sidekick, swirling around your ankles as you step closer to the bridge. From a distance, it seemed delicate, maybe even fragile, but up close, it's far stranger. The span is made of pale stone worn so smooth it almost gleams, though you can't imagine anyone hauling marble this deep into a forest. The railings curl upward like unfurling vines, etched with patterns that look suspiciously like faces. Some smile, others frown. A few are doing that ambiguous "I'm judging you" expression you usually see from cats. You pause at the foot of the bridge, lantern pulsing faintly in your hand. The air here is different, cooler, sharper, like peppermint water. You breathe in, and it feels oddly clarifying, as though thoughts you didn't know you'd misplaced are tumbling back into place. And then the opposite, like something slips away. A memory? A thought? You mutter, "Fantastic, a bridge that gaslights you. Just what I needed." The first step creaks faintly beneath your boot, though the stone shouldn't creak. That's when you realize it's not the stone groaning, it's the memory you're leaving behind. The whispers of the forest warned you, but you didn't really believe it until now. What drifts from you isn't heavy, it's subtle. A conversation you had 3 summers ago, the taste of cinnamon bread at last winter's festival, the exact color of your neighbor's rooster. Gone, like background apps closing without your permission. And here's where the history nerds come in. Folklorists have long puzzled over why so many European tales feature bridges with strange powers. Some say they symbolize life transitions, stepping from childhood into adulthood, from ignorance into wisdom. Others think they were just cautionary tales about real bridges being so rickety that anyone who crossed them ended up dazed and confused on the other side. A quirky tidbit? In Norse myth, there's Bifrost, the rainbow bridge linking Midgard and Asgard. Scholars still debate whether the shimmering description meant an actual aurora borealis, or if people were just trying to explain why sometimes the sky looks like it's showing off. You shuffle forward, testing each step as though the bridge might pull a prank. The mist rises higher, clinging to your knees. You swear you hear faint laughter woven into the air, like the bridge itself finds your careful crossing amusing. Your lantern warms in your palm, glowing brighter now, sending soft arcs of light that make the etched faces seem alive. One carving winks, at least you think it does. Halfway across, your thoughts grow hazy. What were you doing? Where were you going? For a moment, you nearly forget the sleeping prince, the quest, even your own name. The fog in your mind is thicker than the fog around your feet. You lean heavily on the railing, trying to anchor yourself, and the stone hums beneath your touch like a tuning fork. Then the lantern flares. Light spills out in golden ripples, washing over the bridge, pushing the mist back. You feel memories return. Not all of them, but enough. Your name, your purpose, the village you left behind. The rooster detail is gone forever. Tragic. You steady yourself and press on, boots clicking softly against the stone. With each step, the mist thins until you see the far bank waiting, green and solid. The final stretch feels lighter, easier, as though the bridge itself is tired of playing tricks. When you step onto solid earth again, the lantern dims back to its gentle pulse. Behind you, the mist curls over the bridge once more, erasing your passage like chalk wiped from a board. You glance back only once, muttering, "Yep, I won that round." Sort of. Somewhere beyond the trees, you hear a new sound, a honking, oddly cheerful and insistent, because, apparently, your next guide doesn't believe in subtle entrances. The honking grows louder, echoing through the thinning mist like a brass band warming up in the wrong key. You squint into the underbrush, lantern raised, when a plump white goose waddles out, head bobbing like it's on a mission. Its feathers gleam with an almost suspicious cleanliness, like it just stepped out of a detergent commercial, and its orange beak snaps open and shut with every indignant honk. It stops right in front of you, fixes you with a side-eye glare that could curdle milk, and honks once more, as if to say, "You're late." "Fantastic," you murmur. "My magical quest now comes with poultry commentary." The goose honks again, louder this time, and struts down the path as if it owns both the land and your schedule. You hesitate for half a beat before following, because, let's face it, arguing with a goose never ends well. Just ask anyone who's been chased across a park bench. As you trail behind, the goose keeps glancing over its wing, checking that you're keeping up, muttering soft grunts like a grumpy tour guide. The lantern in your hand sways with each step, glowing faintly brighter in the goose's presence, which is, frankly, suspicious. "Great," you say under your breath. "It's in cahoots with the lamp." Historically speaking, geese have had more star power in folklore than you'd think. In Roman legend, a gaggle of sacred geese once saved the city by honking during a night attack, waking the guards. A quirky tidbit? In parts of medieval Europe, geese were thought to migrate not across continents, but from under the sea, literally hatching from barnacles. Folklorists still argue whether this bizarre belief was just bad birdwatching or a creative excuse for eating goose during Lent. Your feathered guide leads you into a clearing where the trees lean back, letting in pale strips of light. The ground sparkles faintly with frost, though the air isn't cold enough for it, and the goose pauses dramatically, honking at a cluster of stones. At first, you think it's random rubble, but then you notice the stones are arranged in a circle, almost like a miniature henge. The goose struts to the center, pecks at the ground, and then honks at you with a commanding air. You sigh, crouch down, and notice faint carvings etched into the stones, spirals, stars, and what looks like a very poorly drawn goose. "Of course," you say. "You've been leaving Yelp reviews in stone." The goose approvingly honks and then waddles toward a narrow path on the far side of the clearing. It waits there, tapping its webbed foot as though timing you. When you step between the stones, something changes. The forest around you grows quieter. Not silent, but hushed in a reverent way. The air feels charged, not in a frightening sense, more like walking into a concert hall seconds before the orchestra starts tuning. Even the lantern seems to understand, glowing softer, almost like it's bowing. The goose honks one last time, a little less bossy now, and then waddles off the path into the trees, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. You're left standing in the charged stillness, the carvings on the stones faintly glowing as if marking your passage into the next chapter of the journey. Somewhere ahead, the frost glimmers stronger, like an orchard caught midwinter, while the rest of the world insists it's spring. The air cools as you step beyond the stone's circle, and the first thing you notice is the smell. Crisp and faintly sweet, like apples stored in a root cellar. You walk forward, and there it is, a vast orchard, trees stretching in neat, endless rows, their branches heavy with blossoms locked in ice. Each petal is frozen mid-bloom, glistening like glass chandeliers hung out in the wild. The ground crunches under your boots, coated with a thin crust of frost that sparkles whenever your lantern sways. It's beautiful, sure, but also the kind of beautiful that makes you suspicious. "Lovely," you mutter. "A snow globe I can't escape." You reach out to touch one of the blossoms, fingertip grazing its delicate edge, and flinch at the bite of cold. The flower doesn't crack. It hums faintly, like a tuning fork. The sound spreads to the neighboring branches until the entire orchard sings with a low, shimmering note. It's haunting and oddly soothing, like a choir warming up 3 counties away. Folklorists would tell you that frozen orchards pop up in more tales than you'd expect. In some Slavic stories, cursed fruit trees symbolize stalled seasons, time itself put on pause until a hero breaks the spell. In Norse sagas, orchards often connect to Idun, keeper of the apples of youth. One quirky tidbit: in certain old German folk songs, a frozen orchard meant a wedding had been interrupted by magical forces. Scholars still argue if this imagery was purely poetic, or if people just had a habit of writing very dramatic weather reports. You wander between the rows, lantern glow spilling across frosted bark. Each breath clouds before you, curling upward like ghostly smoke. The silence here is thick, but not empty. It feels like the trees are holding their breath, waiting. You half expect one to cough politely. Halfway through the orchard, you spot something peculiar. A single tree with no frost clinging to it. Its blossoms are pink and alive, trembling gently in the still air. Beneath it, a patch of grass grows green and fresh, as though spring forgot to read the memo about the curse. The lantern in your hand pulses stronger, like it recognizes this anomaly. You step closer, and as you do, you notice an old wooden bench tucked beneath the tree, weathered but sturdy. It looks wildly out of place, like someone set it there just for you. You sit, exhaling into the chill. The warmth of the lantern spreads into your lap, and for a moment, it feels like the orchard sighs in relief, its frozen hum softening around you. You glance up, and sure enough, the blossoms above stir faintly, releasing a single petal that drifts lazily onto your shoulder. Not frozen, alive. "Great," you whisper. "Either I'm chosen, or the orchard sneezed." The goose doesn't appear this time, but you can't shake the sense that something, or someone, is nudging you forward. A breeze curls through the rows, carrying with it a distant scent of smoke and broth, the unmistakable promise of a hearth fire somewhere ahead.
You follow the scent of smoke and broth the way a cartoon character follows a floating pie aroma. Nose first, lantern swaying. The orchard thins, the frost clinging less stubbornly to the ground until grass pushes through in stubborn patches of green. Soon, the trees give way entirely, and you spot a cluster of cottages huddled together like gossiping neighbors. Chimneys puff out thin ribbons of smoke curling into the evening air, and golden light spills from shuttered windows. You step into the village square. If you can call it that, it's more like a circle of cobblestones with a well plopped in the middle. People move about slowly, not in a rush, but with the calm rhythm of folks who know the day's work is mostly done. They glance at you, curious but not unfriendly, and a few even nod in that small-town way that says, "We already know your business." One older woman waves you over. She's stirring a pot over a fire, and the smell hits you like a memory you didn't know you had. Root vegetables, herbs, and that earthy richness of broth simmered all day. She offers you a bowl with a smile so wide it could power a windmill. You hesitate for only a second before accepting, because honestly, who turns down soup on a journey? The first sip warms your throat, spreads into your chest, and unknots something in your shoulders. "Careful," she chuckles. "Too much and you'll nap right here." It's a funny thing. Folklore is filled with villages that seem to exist only for the traveler's convenience. In grim tales, you'll stumble across an inn at just the right moment, or a kindly old woman offering bread in the middle of nowhere. Scholars argue whether this reflects real medieval hospitality, or if storytellers just couldn't stand to send heroes to bed hungry. A quirky tidbit: in some French tales, soup itself was enchanted, meant to restore not only strength, but memory. Basically, the medieval version of chicken soup fixes everything. You sit on a wooden stool near the fire as a few villagers gather. One man, his beard frosted white, tells you he's heard of the orchard you passed. "It's been that way for as long as we remember," he says, "locked in a winter that never melts." Another chimes in. "They say the frost is tied to a prince, sleeping somewhere beyond the fields." You nearly choke on your soup. So the rumors travel here too. The Maiden's quest isn't just bedtime gossip, it's woven into their lives. And because no group gathering is complete without unsolicited advice, they all start chiming in at once. One insists you'll need courage more than strength. Another mutters something about iron shoes. A third says, very seriously, don't trust bridges, which frankly you could have used a little earlier. Through it all, you catch snippets of laughter, the comforting murmur of voices, the occasional clang of a mug against the well. The warmth is almost enough to convince you to stay, but the lantern in your hand pulses again, softly but insistently, like a reminder tapping your shoulder. You thank the villagers, set the empty bowl aside, and stand. The older woman pats your arm. She says, "Dawn travels with you, child. But so do blisters. Wear thicker socks." You grin, tug your cloak tighter, and step back onto the path. Behind you, the hearth fire crackles, fading into the night air. Ahead, you hear the faint rush of water. Not soothing babble, but the sharp, insistent voice of a river already preparing to argue. The path narrows, funneled between banks of reeds that hiss and sway like nosy neighbors whispering about your questionable life choices. Soon the ground gives way to flat stones, slick with spray, and the sound of rushing water grows louder, tumbling into your ears until it drowns out your own thoughts. And there it is, a river wide enough to make you groan. Its waters are fast, foaming white as they crash over rocks, churning like an over-caffeinated espresso machine. The current looks less like something you'd cross and more like something that would eat your boots for breakfast. You edge closer, lantern glowing faintly, and that's when you hear it. A voice, deep and rolling, woven right into the water's roar. "Not here," it bellows. "Too dangerous." You freeze. "Great," you mutter. "A river with opinions. Just what I needed." The river gurgles in reply, almost like laughter. Then the voice shifts tone, slower, rumbling. "Cross upstream. The stones remember." Folklorists love a talking river. In countless European tales, rivers are guardians, guides, or obstacles depending on their mood. Some argue they symbolize the thin line between life and death, a threshold that must be respected. A quirky tidbit? In parts of medieval Germany, villagers would literally feed rivers by tossing in bread or cheese to ensure safe crossings. Scholars still argue whether these offerings were religious rituals, desperate bribes, or just the medieval version of littering with snacks. You stand on the bank, hands on your hips, considering your options. Upstream, huh? Sure, let's just hope you're not the type who says 5 minutes away when it's really 40. The river splashes indignantly, spraying your cloak. You take that as confirmation. So you walk along the edge, the lantern casting ripples of gold across the froth. After a while, you find it, a series of stones half buried in water, forming a natural path across. They glisten like slick teeth, each daring you to step. The lantern pulses brighter with every footfall, steadying you even when your balance wavers. Halfway across, the river speaks again, quieter now, almost like it's confiding in you. Others came, they turned back. You pause, boots planted on the slippery stone. "Well," you murmur, "others didn't have my goose." Then you glance around and add, "Wherever it's hiding." The current hisses,
but whether in amusement or annoyance, you can't tell. You keep moving, your breath misting in the cool spray. By the time you step onto the far bank, your boots are soaked and your nerves frayed, but you're upright, alive, and still in possession of your sarcastic commentary. The river growls one last time, softer now. Remember, the stones do not forget. You glance back, shaking your head. Neither do my socks, buddy. The reeds part ahead, revealing a rise in the land. At its crest you glimpse the dark mouth of a cave, stars painted faintly above it like someone used the night sky as wallpaper. The cave mouth looms ahead, black and still, like someone carved a doorway into the hillside and then forgot to add the door. The stars above it twinkle in strange patterns, almost too deliberate, as if the sky itself leaned down to dodal directions on the rock face. Your lantern hums faintly in your grip, its glow soft but steady, nudging you closer. You pause at the entrance. The air pouring out is cool and dry, carrying the faint smell of stone dust and something metallic, like an old coin pressed against your tongue. You mutter, "Perfect, a cave that tastes like spare change." Inside, the darkness wraps around you like a heavy blanket. Your lantern light bounces off the walls, revealing drawings etched into the stone. Spirals, animal figures, stick-like humans with arms raised as if in greeting. Some are faded, others sharp, glowing faintly in the lamplight, as though the pigments never bothered to age. Folklorists would tell you caves are the ultimate stage for legends. They're places of beginnings, wombs of the earth where heroes are born or where secrets are hidden. A quirky tidbit: in certain Celtic myths, caves weren't just shelters, but doorways to the other world, where time flowed differently. Scholars still argue whether the markings found in real caves, like those at Lascaux, were sacred rituals or simply the prehistoric version of teenagers tagging a wall with, "I was here." Deeper in, the drawings change. Now you see stars painted across the ceiling in careful constellations. Some you recognize, the hunter, the bear, the swan. Others are stranger, shapes with no names, clustered together like forgotten constellations no one bothered to pass down. Your lantern flickers, and for a moment you swear they shift, rearranging themselves, as if winking at your confusion. You walk further, your boots crunching softly against gravel. The tunnel narrows, then widens suddenly into a chamber so vast it feels like stepping into the belly of the sky. The walls are covered edge to edge with stars painted in glowing pigments, the kind that shimmer faintly even without the lantern. It's breathtaking, like the night decided to move indoors for a change. At the chamber's center stands a stone pedestal, flat-topped with carvings around its base. Spirals again, but also what looks like a dawn sun, lines radiating outward like sleepy eyelashes. Your lantern pulses brighter, casting warm light over the pedestal. You run a hand across the carvings, and the stone hums faintly under your palm. The hum builds, echoing through the chamber until the whole place vibrates with sound, low, steady, like the earth itself clearing its throat. "Okay," you whisper, "either I activated an ancient prophecy, or I just rang a giant doorbell." The walls respond with a shimmer. The painted stars flare brighter, then dim, settling into new constellations you don't recognize. For a moment, you think you see shapes forming: an orchard, a river, a sleeping figure beneath rays of dawn. Then they fade, leaving you blinking in the silence. Scholars would probably argue whether you just saw a vision or an overactive imagination. You decide not to invite them into the cave to debate it. Your lantern steadies, its glow calm again, and you take it as a cue to keep moving. Beyond the chamber, a narrow tunnel leads upward, the faint draft carrying the smell of grass and open air.
You climb toward it, heart steady, ready for whatever strange landmark greets you next.
You climb out of the narrow tunnel and step into moonlight again, blinking as your eyes adjust. The cave breathes you back into the open like you've passed through some enormous throat, and the air feels fresh, tinged with dew and wild herbs. Above, the stars are scattered thick as sugar across velvet, and the moon hangs just shy of full, plump and glowing, as though it's saving its best self for tomorrow night. The meadow before you rolls gently, and at its far edge a circle of stones rises, pale and upright. They stand in silence, tall and weathered, their shadows stretching across the grass like pointing fingers. You feel a thrill as you walk closer, because stone circles have that effect. Part mystery, part, did someone just forget to clean up after building a cosmic dinner table? Historians still argue over their purpose. Were they calendars for the stars, altars for ancient rituals, or just really ambitious landscaping projects? A quirky fact, some stone circles, like Castlereagh in England, line up perfectly with solstices, suggesting people thousands of years ago had a better handle on astronomy than you do on updating your phone's operating system. As you approach, the air feels charged, like static before a storm. Your lantern responds with a gentle flare, casting gold across the stones. You walk between them, and for a moment, it feels as if each pillar tilts slightly, acknowledging you in silence. In the circle's center lies a low slab, flat as a tabletop, with moss growing along its edges. You run your fingers across it, and the surface is warm, strangely warm, as though it remembers the sun even in the cool night. Then a sound drifts across the meadow, not the usual night chorus of crickets and owls, but something else, low, melodic, like a flute being played on the wind. You freeze, then chuckle nervously. Sure, a mysterious midnight concert. No red flags here. The tune rises and falls, weaving itself through the stones. Folklore tells of such music, fairy songs that can lead travelers astray or lull them into sleep that lasts centuries. The odd tidbit? Some stories claim the fairies weren't malicious, they just really, really liked having an audience. Scholars debate whether these tales reflect warnings against wandering off at night or simply the universal human fear of missing a good party. You stand still, letting the music wash over you. It's haunting, yes, but there's also comfort in it, a lullaby carried by the breeze. Your lantern sways in your hand, the light pulsing softly with the rhythm. The meadow, the stones, the stars, everything feels like it's leaning in, waiting. For a fleeting second, you imagine the sleeping prince hearing this same tune in his dream, waiting for you to follow its notes toward him. And though you know better than to trust magical lullabies, your feet itch to keep walking, to find the source before it fades away. You glance at the circle one last time, half expecting the stones to clap politely at the end of the performance. Then you set off, following the trail of sound toward the trees rising in the distance, where the forest seems to hold its breath.
The trees swallow you again, their branches knitting overhead so thickly that the moon can only peek through in slivers. The flute-like melody still threads its way between the trunks, softer now, almost teasing, as though daring you to keep up. Your lantern flickers gently, not with alarm, but with the steady heartbeat of reassurance. You move slowly, your boots whispering against the moss. The air feels damp and cool, scented with pine resin and damp earth. Insects hum lazily in the background, their song a counterpoint to the drifting tune. For a moment, it feels like you're inside some giant symphony where every player is half asleep. The path curves and drops into a hollow, and there, glowing faintly, you see them, strange figures half hidden in the trees. At first you think they're people, standing still in the shadows. Your pulse jumps. Then you realize they're statues, carved from pale stone,
each one unique. Some wear crowns, others simple robes. One looks like a farmer holding a sheaf of wheat, another like a young woman with her hands pressed together in prayer. You edge closer. The statues are weathered but detailed, their faces carved with a precision that makes them seem on the verge of moving. A bit unnerving, sure, but also oddly comforting, like bumping into an outdoor family reunion where everyone just happens to be petrified. Historians would say forest statues are often memorials or boundary markers. A quirky tidbit: in certain parts of Eastern Europe, people carved figures into trees or stone as offerings, hoping to keep forests safe from storms. Scholars can't agree if these statues represented real ancestors or imagined guardians, but most folklore agrees on one thing: forests are never empty. Someone or something is always watching. The music fades here, swallowed by silence. Your lantern swells brighter, washing the statues in warm light. Their shadows bend and stretch, creating the illusion that they lean toward you, curious. One statue in particular catches your eye: a maiden with a lantern carved into her hands. The detail is so fine, you can see each flame etched on its surface. Well, you mutter, nice to know someone else in this neighborhood is on lantern duty. You brush moss from the base of her statue and notice faint letters carved there, though time has worn them down. You can't quite read them, but the shape resembles the dawn sun you saw in the cave paintings. A thread of recognition hums through you, connecting past to present. Then a rustle breaks the silence, not the polite rustle of a rabbit darting away, but the deliberate sound of movement close by. You freeze. Out of the shadows slips a figure, not stone, but flesh. An old woman draped in tattered shawls, her hair a silver cascade lit by your lantern. She leans on a crooked staff and regards you with eyes sharper than you expect at this hour. "Well now," she says, voice low and rough, "following songs in the night, are you? Brave or foolish?" You swallow. "Why not both?" She chuckles, the sound like dry leaves. "Careful, child. These statues watch more than you realize, and they remember." Her gaze lingers on your lantern, then flicks back to your face. Still, the path you seek lies ahead, if you've got the courage to see it. The statues seem to lean in closer at her words, though you know it's just your imagination, or at least you hope so. The woman steps back, melting into the shadows as if she never existed. The hollow falls quiet again, save for your heartbeat echoing in your ears. You grip your lantern tighter, knowing the journey just deepened into something far older than you imagined.
The forest feels heavier after the woman disappears, as if the trees themselves leaned closer to hear what she said. Your lantern hums in your hand, casting a steady glow over the statues. Their faces seem softer now, less watchful, as though they've silently agreed to let you pass. You climb out of the hollow and onto a narrow path that twists uphill. The air shifts as you walk, thinner, cooler, and filled with the faintest trace of something sweet, like honey melting into warm milk. You sniff the breeze and mutter, "Great! Either the forest is baking dessert, or I'm about to hallucinate a bakery." The path opens suddenly into a clearing, and there it stands. A massive oak, so wide it would take a dozen people holding hands to circle its trunk. Its bark glows faintly silver in the moonlight, and from its branches hang hundreds of ribbons, charms, and tokens. Some are scraps of cloth, others carved wooden trinkets, and a few glitter like coins. They sway in the night breeze, whispering together like a crowd of voices. Folklore is full of sacred trees like this, places where people tied offerings for good fortune or healing. A quirky tidbit, in parts of Ireland and Scotland, Clootie trees were dressed with strips of fabric dipped in water, believed to carry away sickness as they decayed. Scholars still debate whether these traditions were purely pagan or cleverly absorbed into early Christianity, but either way, the practice lingers like a stubborn root. You step closer. The ribbons shimmer in your lantern's light, their colors muted by time but still distinct. Some look new, as though added just days ago. You reach out and touch one, a piece of blue fabric, soft and frayed at the edges. It feels warm, oddly alive, like the memory of someone's hands lingers in it. Then you notice something stranger. Near the base of the tree, low among the roots, lies a lantern almost identical to yours. Its glass is cracked, its metal frame worn, but faint light still glimmers inside. You crouch down and brush away moss to lift it. The glow strengthens, flaring briefly before steadying into a soft golden pulse in rhythm with your own lantern's light. "Well," you whisper, "either I've unlocked the 2-lantern upgrade pack, or someone's trying to tell me I'm not the first one here." The oak creaks, its branches swaying as though agreeing. For a moment, you imagine the sleeping prince placing this lantern here long ago, a breadcrumb left in the forest for someone brave, or foolish, enough to follow. The charms rattle softly, like applause in miniature. You slip the second lantern onto your belt, its glow mingling with the first. Together their light feels stronger, warmer, as though the forest itself approves. Above you, the moon drifts higher, and the air grows still. The great oak looms like a guardian, its ribbons and trinkets whispering secrets you can't quite catch. You take a steadying breath, glance once more at the glowing twin lanterns, and step back onto the path. Somewhere beyond this secret place lies the dawn, and the prince still waiting in his enchanted sleep. And now for the first time, you don't feel like you're walking toward him alone.
The path curls away from the oak, narrowing into a ridge lined with heather and low shrubs. The second lantern swings at your belt, its faint glow syncing with the one in your hand, like two hearts beating in tandem. You grin a little at the rhythm and mutter, "Well, at least if I collapse from exhaustion, my lanterns can duet at the funeral." The ridge rises steadily, each step taking you higher. The trees thin, replaced by rolling hills bathed in pale moonlight. The horizon stretches wide and endless, with the faint blush of dawn just beginning to tease its way into the black sky. You pause to breathe it in. Sharp air, tinged with grass and dew, a promise that night won't last forever. Ahead, perched atop a rise, you spot a stone tower. Its silhouette is sharp against the stars, narrow and tall like a finger pointing at the heavens. Even from a distance, you feel its weight, the way it dominates the landscape with silent authority. Historians would point out that towers often served as watchposts or refuges in medieval times. Practical, strategic, a way to see what's coming before it arrives. A quirky tidbit: some legends claim that solitary towers weren't just defenses, but prisons for dreamers, people whose visions or prophecies unsettled their communities. Scholars still argue whether those stories reflect real punishments or just exaggerated metaphors for isolation. As you draw closer, the tower's surface reveals itself, not plain stone, but carved, spirals, suns and stars etched into every block, faintly glowing in your lantern light. You run your fingers over one as you near the door, tracing the grooves. The stone feels warm under your touch, pulsing faintly, as if the tower itself has a heartbeat. The door is wooden, weathered, its iron hinges rusted but intact. You push, and it groans open without resistance, the sound echoing inside like a sigh. You step in cautiously, lanterns casting twin pools of gold across the floor. The interior is narrow, the stairs spiraling upward into shadow. Each step creaks beneath your boots, and the higher you climb, the cooler the air becomes, as though the tower siphons heat out of the night. Jokes pop into your head, like how this place could double as a gym membership if you weren't already too sleep-deprived to care, but you keep them to yourself, saving your breath. Halfway up, your lanterns flare brighter, illuminating frescoes painted along the wall. They depict scenes you recognize: a maiden walking through forests, a lantern glowing in her hand, a prince asleep under rays of dawn. It takes you a moment to realize the story on the walls is yours. Every step you've taken, etched in pigments centuries old. You laugh softly, though it sounds a little nervous in the echo. Fantastic, either I'm in a fairy tale or someone's been spying on me with medieval CCTV. The stairs end at a chamber with tall, narrow windows. Moonlight spills in, pale and cold, mixing with your lantern's glow. In the center stands a low stone table, carved with spirals and suns. Upon it rests a book, its cover worn and cracked, yet faintly shimmering, as though it holds more than ink inside. You approach slowly, heart steady but loud in your ears. The book feels important, maybe even necessary, a piece of the puzzle you'd been stumbling toward all along. Your lanterns brighten, washing the chamber in gold as if giving their approval. You reach out, fingers hovering over the cover. The leather is warm, almost alive, as though it's been waiting, not for just anyone, but for you.
Your hand hovers above the book, and for a heartbeat, you think it might leap open by itself, like a cat too impatient to wait for feeding time. Instead, it sits quietly, waiting, its worn cover shimmering faintly in your lantern glow. Finally, you place your palm against it. The leather is soft, but warm. Too warm, like it has been soaking up sunlight all day, even though the tower is cold as stone. The cover yields under your touch, and the book opens with a sigh, pages fluttering like wings. The writing inside isn't neat rows of letters, but sprawling symbols, spirals, suns, stars, and flowing lines that ripple across the page as though they've been drawn in water. For a moment you panic, thinking you won't be able to read any of it. Then the symbols shift, settling into words that make sense, though they shimmer and fade at the edges. The first line reads, "The one who carries the lantern walks between night and dawn." You blink. Okay, so it's a how-to manual, but with extra poetry. As you read further, the book tells of a prince cursed into sleep, not by malice, but by balance. The night had grown too long and the dawn too weak. To keep the world turning, someone had to rest, to dream the sun back into rising. That someone was the prince. He would remain asleep until a lantern bearer could carry the light of night into the heart of dawn. Historians would love this kind of text. They'd argue endlessly about whether it represents an allegory for seasonal cycles or a literal memory of ancient rituals. A quirky tidbit? Some medieval monks swore they copied books that changed their words as they wrote them, claiming the text refused to stay still. Scholars, of course, debate whether those monks were exhausted or just very dramatic. You keep reading. The book describes landmarks you've already seen: the Cave of Stars, the Circle of Stones, the oak dressed in ribbons. Each was a trial, a way to weave your journey into the prince's dream. And ahead lies the final place, the dawn's threshold, where night unravels and the first light gathers. As you trace the words, they glow faintly, then fade, leaving the page blank. The book shivers once and closes itself, landing with a soft thud that echoes in the chamber. Your lanterns flare together, their light brighter than before, mingling into a single golden-white glow. You feel it in your chest, a warmth spreading outward, steady and sure. The tower seems to sigh with you, its walls humming faintly, frescoes glowing as if newly painted. "Right," you murmur. "Lantern upgrade complete. Now all I need is the actual prince." From the window, you glimpse the horizon again. The faint blush of dawn is stronger now, spreading pink and silver into the night. The air feels charged, humming with the same rhythm as your lantern. Somewhere out there, at the edge of night and morning, waits the place the book called the threshold. You close your hand around the lantern's handle, steadying yourself. The tower has given you its secret. The book has given you its truth. Now it's up to you to carry it forward.
You descend the spiral stairs with the book's words still echoing in your head. The lantern bearer walks between night and dawn. Each step feels steadier than before, as though the tower itself has loaned you its strength. When you emerge into the cool night air again, the horizon is shifting, darkness thinning, dawn smudging its soft colors across the sky. Your lantern's glow is no longer just a small circle of gold. It stretches farther, brighter, like it's eager to meet the rising sun. The second lantern at your belt pulses in harmony, both beams weaving together until they feel less like objects and more like extensions of you. The ridge path carries you higher, through heather and grass that whisper in the early breeze. Ahead, the land narrows into a stony outcrop jutting over the valley. It looks ordinary at first, just rock and wind, until you notice the shimmer. The air above the outcrop ripples faintly, like heat over pavement, though the night is still cool. You mutter, "Yep, nothing suspicious about a glowing patch of air on top of a cliff. Totally safe." The closer you walk, the more the shimmer clarifies. It's not just air, it's a doorway of sorts, woven from threads of light. Pale silver, rosy pink, the faintest gold, colors of dawn before the sun is fully awake. They stretch and twist, forming an arch that hums softly, a sound you feel more in your bones than your ears. Folklore is full of thresholds like this. The Greeks spoke of gates where gods crossed into the mortal world at dawn. In Norse stories, Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, connected realms with shimmering light. A quirky tidbit? Some medieval travelers swore they'd seen the sky crack open just before sunrise, a rift where angels might slip through. Scholars debate whether these were visions, weather phenomena, or simply sleep-deprived imaginations. You stand at the edge of the threshold, lantern raised. The air tingles, cool yet warm, buzzing with an energy that tastes faintly of honey and ash. The wind presses against your back, nudging you forward like an impatient friend. You laugh softly. "All right, I'll take the hint." The moment you step onto the outcrop, the lanterns flare. The shimmer parts like a curtain, light bending and folding until a path of radiance stretches ahead. It isn't stone or soil beneath your boots anymore. It's light itself, solid enough to hold you, trembling faintly as you walk. Below, the valley is still cloaked in night. Above, the sky unravels, stars retreating as dawn spills across the horizon. Every step carries you farther into the glow, as though you're walking inside the heartbeat of the morning. Somewhere ahead you feel it, the sleeping prince waiting at the center of this luminous threshold. Not just a boy in a bed, but a presence, a dream woven into the fabric of sunrise. The closer you come, the stronger the warmth spreads through your chest, steady and sure. And for the first time, you realize this journey was never only about waking him, it was also about carrying the light yourself, becoming the bridge between night and day.
The path of light trembles under your steps, yet it holds, solid as stone. Each footfall sends ripples outward, as though you're walking across the surface of a calm lake made of sunrise. Ahead, the glow gathers into a shape, first a blur, then a figure resting upon a low stone bed at the center of the threshold. The sleeping prince. He lies still, face calm, hair spread like a dark river across the pale stone. His chest rises and falls slowly, the rhythm of someone lost in a dream too deep to surface from. You pause, lantern raised, and feel the warmth in your chest pulse stronger, sinking with the rise and fall of his breath. Your instinct is to make a joke, something about how he looks like he's auditioning for a cologne commercial, but the lump in your throat gets in the way. He isn't just beautiful in the storybook sense.
He feels inevitable, like you've been walking toward him since the moment you first lit your lantern. You step closer. The book's words whisper in your memory. Carry the light of night into the heart of dawn. You lift both lanterns, their beams merging into one golden white glow. It pours over him, sinking into his skin, chasing away the shadows that cling to his form. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then his eyelids flutter. The light thickens, wrapping him like a second dawn. His lips part, a sigh escaping, and his eyes open, bright as the horizon, reflecting both moonlight and the first streaks of sun. Folklorists would argue about what this moment means. Is it literal magic, or an allegory for renewal, for balance returning? A quirky tidbit: in countless European tales, awakening isn't always about breaking curses. It's about restoring harmony, the simple act of reminding the world how to turn again. Scholars still debate whether such tales were warnings, comforts, or just wishful dreams. The prince looks at you, eyes full of recognition, though you've never met. "You carried the light," he says softly, voice rough from long silence, "and you brought me back." You laugh because what else can you do at the edge of dawn with a half-legendary prince thanking you? "Well," you murmur, "it was either this or go home early and watch reruns." He smiles faintly, and the threshold hums louder, as if sharing in the moment. Light rushes outward, washing the valley below in pink and gold. Night peels away like old paint, and the first true rays of sunrise crown the hills. The lanterns in your hands flare once more, then dim, their glow fading gently. You realize they're no longer needed. You've carried the light to where it belongs. The prince stands, steadying himself, and together you walk toward the edge of the radiant path. Behind you, the threshold begins to dissolve, threads of dawn unraveling into the morning sky. Ahead, the real world waits. Fields, forests, villages, and the rhythm of ordinary days. You glance once over your shoulder, then step into the warmth of sunrise.
The light is softer now. The story slows. Imagine yourself standing in that meadow as dawn unfolds gently, the grass jeweled with dew, the air cool and steady. You feel the night retreat, not with haste, but with care, as if it's folding itself neatly away until it is needed again. The prince is safe, the path is complete, and your lantern rests quietly at your side. You no longer need its glow, for the sky has taken over, filling every shadow with its own light. The horizon stretches wide and endless, painted in soft pastels, rose, gold, and silver blending like watercolor across the canvas of the morning. Your breath slows. Each inhale tastes of clean air and the promise of new beginnings. Each exhale releases the weight of the journey, the caves, the statues, the songs, the waiting. All of it dissolves like mist in sunlight. The forest nearby whispers softly, branches swaying in the mild breeze. Somewhere birds begin to stir, their voices faint, as if they too are reluctant to leave the hush of night behind. You listen without urgency, letting the sounds cradle you, each note a thread woven into the tapestry of rest. Time stretches here, long and unbroken. The meadow, the sky, the dawn, all of it feels eternal. You are safe in this moment, wrapped in quiet, your heart steady and calm. Let your thoughts drift now, like leaves carried on a slow river. The story has done its work, holding you until sleep could find you. Let go of the lantern, the path, the waking prince.
Let them remain in their world of dream. And as you sink deeper into stillness, hear this soft farewell. Sleep well, dream gently, and may the dawn always rise to meet you, rise to meet you, rise to meet you, rise.